Hello, my name is Alonso Gutierrez, and my video presentation is on Carlton Watkins. So, background of who was Carlton Watkins. Carlton Watkins was a self-taught photographer who worked with a camera the size of a suitcase, and he used it to convince the President of the United States that the Yosemite Valley was worth saving. And he worked very difficult scenarios. So his early life, he was born in 1829 in New York, and he was the oldest of 8 children. And as you can see, it's a very rural area. In 1849, he moved west in search of gold, but the gold rush did not pay off well. So he moved on to San Francisco to look for a job. He found work as a clerk and then later became an assistant of a studio where he picked up the basics in photography almost by accident, and by 1858 he opened his own photography business. The way that Watkins worked was using a wet collodion process, which meant that every glass negative had to be coated, sensitized, exposed, and developed on the spot in under 15 minutes. And for the landscape of Yosemite, it was very difficult, meaning he had to carry tons of equipment. What he carried was a camera that exposed an 18 by 22 inch glass negative that is called a mammoth plate camera. He also loaded a second stereoscopic camera along with glass chemicals and a darkroom onto mules so that he can travel on the wild. In 1861, he made his expedition to Yosemite, and he came back with 30 mammoth plates and 100 stereo negatives. This was the first real photograph of Yosemite that most Americans had ever seen. In 1862, he had his photos put into an exhibit, and the reaction was immediate from the New York Times, who called them unequaled because of how good they were. This shows how the gallery of his exhibition looked like, and one of the photographs that he took with the camera. His photographs were very much liked by everyone, that they reached Congress, especially with Senator John Conness, who showed them to the president of the time, Abraham Lincoln. And in June of 1864, President Lincoln signed the Yosemite Grants Act in the middle of the Civil War, and the act set the valley aside for public use, resort, and recreation, inalienable for all time, meaning it would be set for the entire future of the U.S., and meant that it would be the seed to the entire national park system. After Yosemite and everything, Watkins kept working for decades, photographing the river, the Columbia River, Mount Shasta, San Francisco, and many mining spots across the West. But Watkins was a terrible businessman, meaning in 1875 he had a financial crisis that cost him his studio and his entire archive of entire archive of negatives to creditors who sold his own photographs under someone else's name, and there was no copyright law to stop them, so he had to rebuild from scratch. In 1906, however, the earthquake and fire burnt or destroyed basically everything that he had, and he spent his final years in the Napa State Hospital, where he died in 1916. Many people say that he's forgotten, but he is very known for his help creating the national parks and his help with photographing the Yosemite. And Ansel Adams himself pointed to Watkins as a finder of the tradition that he worked in, which shows that he did make a grand impact. And these are my sources. Thank you.